running from being poor, running towards making money, all these elements that have turned me into who I am today. And I still there's huge blind spots, which is, a challenging part of it. Cause it's like, you can make 10 steps forward and you get 11 steps back sometimes. Even to this day, there's little things that pop up, big things that pop up.
Constructing your life is about much more than just building a bank account. Each week, join mindset coach Austin Linney as he interviews guests who are constructing their dream lives and impacting the world around them on a daily basis. If you're an entrepreneur or wanting to start a business, or you just want to hear motivating stories of how others have overcome the odds, you are in the right place. And now for your host, Austin Linney.
Guys, welcome back to Construct Your Life. I got him back again. Don't let the red fool you. He's not that scary. But my man Parker's in the house. How you doing, sir?
Good, man. How are you?
Doing good, man. Varsity Parker. We got Varsity Parker in the house. You'd have to be on X to know that. It's another joke,
that's a deep inside joke.
I got my man back, and he said, "What do you want to talk today about?" And I said, mindset, entrepreneurial mindset. But I was driving to the store before I came home, and I was thinking, is entrepreneurial mindset, is that just another word for keeping your fucking emotions in check? Like, I don't know if it's mindset,
partially,
anxiety. Yeah. And it seems to be the overall topic, no matter if I talk to friends that I haven't talked to. I just had my best friend on last week. And we had a great chat, and then we spent 45 minutes talking about how we got our teeth kicked in last year. And it was great,
I think the skill set is the survivability. I think that's kind of a big piece of the mindset, is like, how much shit can you take without completely breaking? Like, you're going to break at some point for sure. But as long as it's not like a fatal break where you're just like, I want to go sweep floors somewhere, you'll survive. So as long as you have like that attitude, like, you'll be all right. And it was funny. I forgot where it was the other day. I saw maybe a tweet or something talking about this. And, it's like, it's really just like getting beat to death so much that you're just callous to being beat. And then everything seems, and I talked about that with some friends of mine too, who just don't do the same thing. And the level of stress that affects them versus me, completely different. Like their stress level is like a 1 and they're freaking out. And mine's like a 98. And I'm like, oh, I'm starting to realize there's some stress here. Like, it's just, decades of getting beat up, basically. So I think that's probably a big part of the mindset. I don't really know. I'm not a genius here.
Well, and I think it's I'll tell you what it's done for me. And this is kind of a new thing for me, which is very hard at 41 years old. Like, I never have ever asked for help in my life. And mentors that I had around earlier maybe didn't have my best intentions. And so on and so on. But now I have a group of business partners and people that I respect and that are mentoring me in the private equity space that don't give a fuck about the financial gains. They're more worried about Austin Linney, the human. And my dad's back in my life, and he's built a business and sold it. Having those things, I didn't realize how much I needed that in my life until it came in my life in the right way. Just people that you can talk to, guys like you, stuff like that,
Yeah, I mean, I think we all kind of need that support system. Like, but it's also, as men, it's like very difficult to ask for help when you need it. Like, it's the last thing I'm thinking about. But if I need it, it's like, I need it right now. Like, it's no longer like, hey, I can kind of feel kind of getting a little, no, it's like, this is an emergency now because I've overlooked this problem for so long. And it's ironic because it's usually like, within businesses or making decisions within businesses. Look, I'll be the first one to admit I've made some really bad mistakes in business over the years, but at the same time, it's like, it's like, you don't know what you don't know in like personal life, emotional, mental health. I'm sure I've made way more mistakes because it's like something I don't understand as much. I don't pay attention to as much. Now I'm getting a little better, but I'm still like, you gotta like, back to what I was just saying with survivability, is like, for a decade of life, I train myself to just be like, oh, that's a problem. Ignore it. Focus on what matters. Like, just because I can't control that, I need to control this. Let me go after this. And then I was so good at compartmentalizing things, it bleeds over into everything else in life. So for me, it's like I can compartmentalize better than anybody, for sure. But it's like at some point in life that becomes a problem because you got to take stuff out of the compartments at some point and address them. And you know, it's different. Like within a business, okay, cool, you have SOPs, you understand, like, hey, we have to deal with this issue over here. It becomes an objective, right? Not like this ambiguous, like I don't feel like getting out of bed today, or, you know, like this kind of like it's not very tactile. It's I'm not sure what that is in terms of mental health, because again, I'm an idiot and I haven't paid any attention. But this is a big area where, because you can train yourself to be so good at one thing, you know, focusing on goals, targets, you know, Q1, Q2, Q3, your operations, your sales, your marketing, all these KPIs. What's the KPI for mental health? And how does that look when you have to take stuff out of the box and start addressing it after a decade? You know, what does that look like? But, you know, it's kind of funny. It's like the inverse. You have to kind of unlearn what you taught yourself to be successful in a business.
Yeah, because you're calcing the patterns, you're calcing behavior, you're this bad habit, especially in my late 20s. Like, I would have problems. Like, if I didn't have to think about my finances were, I would just make more money, and then I wouldn't think about it anymore.
Yeah. Dude,
you're still walking in quicksand.
My running joke for years was just make more money. Like if everyone would just even bring me a problem, like, hey, I stubbed my toe, and my answer was always make more money, make more money, make more money. You know, I'm not happy with this, and I haven't make more money, make more money. It was always that, which is hilariously dumb if you think about it. But also in the moment, it's like I am hammer. Everything looks like a nail. You know.
Yes, that's my favorite. That's my favorite quote. Yeah.
Yeah, and it, you know, there's some good out of that, but net negative.
And anybody that hasn't listened to your first episode, like, just give them a brief overview of how many companies you have, just so they understand the scale that we're talking about here.
So we have a total of 18. Well, it's actually more than that. It's 20 now. Sorry. It's been 18 for a while. It's 20 wholly owned companies, and then we've invested, you know, angel type investments, and another, I think it's almost 90 now. But small, that can be really small stuff, but you know, everything from a brewery to a dissolvable bag business to a CPA firm to a marketing firm to real estate. You know, we're kind of all over the place. We kind of have three buckets of our business. We kind of operate like a family office. One portion is private equity. Second is technically more of an angel than a VC. It's more, we talk. I like the idea. I like you. I believe in you. Let's see what we can do here. Maybe a JV, strategic partnership, something like that, or investment, whatever. And then the real estate side of things as well.
Guys, let me take a minute to tell you about my buddies over at Lead Hub, Ben and Aaron, the best humans I know. Not only are they amazing at marketing for trade companies, but Ben started his HVAC company in his garage, sold it for multi-million dollars. So when this guy talks, I listen. When we took over Dietz Mechanical, we had 22 reviews in 22 years. In 7 short months, we went from 22 reviews to 107. We went from a 4.2 to a 4.7. We tripled our Facebook presence, and we tripled our calls. If you're an HVAC, plumbing, electric, landscaping company, and you're looking for a no BS approach to marketing, you're looking for people who have done it before, you got to go to leadhub.net.
And you know, what part of, as you sit here today and we're recording this today, you know, I'm sure you love each one of them the same. Which part of that bucket, those 3 buckets, which ones do you enjoy the most as we sit here today in January?
That's a good question. I think I'll always kind of have a soft spot in my heart for my marketing business because it's one of the companies I founded. It's been around the longest. Well, longest that I founded. Anyways, one of the companies we invested in was started in the 80s, but yeah, I mean, I started that in 2010, and it's, you know, I kind of made my bones on that. I mean, I remember freaking door knocking and cold calling, you know, closing people for $500 a month, $1,000 a month, and, you know, super small deals. And it was a grind for many years. And I went through ups and downs of that business for sure, of just like the mental side of it. It's like, fuck, like, come on, we got to get something going. So yeah, it still resonates quite a bit. And that was a business I stepped back into actually in a role, in 23 for a few months. So it was cool to kind of see the state of the industry and kind of put my finger back on the pulse. It's been a little while.
And, you know, as you look at the guy that started that business or bought into it and the guy that sits here today, is you had to step back in at 23. So you were out for a long time, you stepped back in. You know, maybe you haven't had time to reflect on it because it kind of just happened recently. Was there any part of you that saw how much you grew as a person from when you started it to when you stepped back in? And to the capacity that you had?
I'll tell you the one thing I did notice, because you're right, I haven't really had a lot of time to sit down and reflect on, what my thoughts were, but I will tell you there's a couple of observations I made pretty quickly in myself. One, because it's been a while since I've been operating in that business. And so when I come back in, it's like, all right, the neural pathways are there. I remember the process, but there's a different twist on it now. And what I noticed was my decisiveness was way better than it used to be. I was able to just see the path and say, that's where we're going, or very quickly assess with a group of my people and say, hey, let's talk about it for 20 minutes, 15 minutes. You give me your pros and cons. Let's talk about it. Let's walk through devil's advocate side of things. Okay, here's what we're gonna go. And rather than being like, all right, let's table this until next week, or maybe do some more research and get back to me, and then we'll talk about it more. And now it turns into a couple weeks, a couple months, maybe longer even. I could just make a decision on the spot, or maybe one follow-up conversation, some confirmation of data or whatever. But the speed at which I can make decisions fairly coherently was definitely a big difference back in the day. And I think it has to do with back when I was really in the thick of things. I mean, it was for a long time, it was just me and some contractors. I mean, anyone who's been in the digital marketing space has built their agency the same way, right? It's like, if you don't have a check behind you, I didn't have a check behind me. Everything I made just kind of got reinvested. And with working in the business every day, I'm super familiar. That's most of my career has been that. So it's very different when you're not. I always describe it as an operational fog, right? And I describe this to managers now, is like, imagine you're driving on a 2-lane highway in the forest, right? Straight drive, but it's extremely dense fog. Okay. And if you ever driven in a fog, shit, I can't see. I got to slow down. I got to be very careful. I got to squint. I got to, whatever, look out, whatever you got to do. Right. Imagine that's you managing the business, being the CEO, whatever, right? Maybe not even the CEO, lower than that, but like middle management, which is essentially what you are when you're a solopreneur, right? So you're operating day to day. You're in this fog. So you're reactionary for sure. You want to be proactive. You understand, you're smart, you get it. But for the most part, you're pretty reactionary because your time is just spread so thin. You're doing 1,000 things, blah, 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 blah. While somebody who maybe might be on your board, or somebody above you might be in a helicopter, 2,000 feet above you, or a plane 30,000 feet above you, right? The distance from the operational fog gives you clarity of vision long term. And if you're like, I would maybe describe, team leader on the road, middle manager in the helicopter, CEO and beyond in the plane, right? Which means I can see 60 miles down the road, there's a bus overturned. The helicopter can see, hey, 6 miles up the road, I can see there's some people on the road. This guy sees 2 feet in front of him. So you have to trust the people above you to help lead, and you have to rely on their vision. So I love that analogy quite a bit. So it's now taking somebody in the plane and putting them back into the fog. Maybe they have a periscope now because they understood I need to have a periscope or whatever, right? They understand there's mechanisms and things they can't see. So I think that's probably one of the bigger things I noticed for sure.
And I think when I talk to you, and I continue to get to know you and we talk more and more, like, I'm not saying that you don't listen to podcasts. I'm not saying that you don't read books. But like, it feels like to me, you're the entrepreneurship's entrepreneur. Like it feels like when you talk and you strategize, it feels like your understanding is from the streets. I mean, the operation chops of it, and you can spot it within 2 seconds in a conversation if they've kind of theorized it from a book. Like you've got the scars to prove it, and it comes out when you speak.
Yeah, so I tend to agree with you, because there's people, even now, I'll meet people that are so eloquent and they understand every terminology in the book, right? Like they got their MBA, they know all the terms. And I'm like, no, you just need the cash to do this. And, and it's just very different, because for sure from the streets, I have no education on paper. I'm an idiot, basically. I really shouldn't be doing anything. But persistence, stubbornness, and just extreme distaste of failure and, running from being poor, running towards making money, all these elements that have turned me into who I am today. And I still there's huge blind spots,
Mm-hmm.
Which is, a challenging part of it. Cause it's like, you can make 10 steps forward and you get 11 steps back sometimes. Even to this day, there's little things that pop up, big things that pop up, and it's decision rationale. It's all these little things that you don't know what you don't know, man. And for me, the learning experience for sure are the bruises and the cuts and the fuck, why'd I do that? Oh, fuck, why'd I do that again? Idiot. Like, it's, it's a healthy level of, self-criticism for sure, to kind of try to make me learn that lesson. The more painful ones you're definitely going to hold on to, but there's a lot of little ones along the way that, everything moves so quickly, right? People don't want to think life is short, but it's fucking short, and time zips by. And if you're not paying close attention to a million different things, a lot just goes past you, goes over your head, you're not paying attention. It's out of sight, out of mind kind of thing. And, I really appreciate the times that I think maybe we've just talked about this before, appreciate the times that I can just go sit, not have my phone, and just be in dead silence by myself, because that's when all the thoughts I have can be processed. And I mean, there's times like even now, sometimes I'll just go, if I don't have a meeting or something in the morning, I'll go grab a coffee, put in some headphones, and just sit and not look at my phone, and just put it in my pocket and like resist the urge and just sit there, because then I'll get a flood of ideas instantly, number one. And number two, I'll start thinking about things more deeply, and like, oh, why did I do that? Why was that good? And like, and yeah, sure, I could probably Google, hey, what's the reason behind these types of whatever, right? That kind of stuff. You could probably, or you can ask somebody. But a lot of times the value for me is to kind of connect that pathway. It's like, can you explain it to your grandmother kind of thing? It's like, if I don't really understand it, I should probably sit down and think about it, especially if it makes a huge impact on my life or people around me I care about, or my business or whatever. I think that's the only way I've been able to really survive, is taking those times. And I notice for sure, if I don't do it for a little while, it kind of backs up where I'm like, shit, I gotta get away. I gotta go do something. I gotta, just go spend 3 hours somewhere by myself quietly. And I'll be able to process so much stuff in that time, because now, you know how it is. You're on the phone all day. I mean, my phone dies 3 times a day. I'm on the phone constantly, a million emails, coordinating people, and blah, 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 right? That is a lot of cognitive load. And like, we'll never admit that, because like, no, I don't need help. I'm good. I'm fine. Whatever. But, and I have that question quite a bit too. It's like, how do you do all these different things? It's like, I enjoy it. It's really fun for me. And I do like the variety and the action and how busy it is and always solving problems. I love all that. But the counterbalance for me to love that and appreciate it is I have to break away sometimes. And the running joke for years was I would just burn myself out for a few years and then take like a few months off and go out of country or whatever. No one would hear from me. And then I'd come back. Literally, it would be every couple of years. But I'm trying to get a little better now, where it's like I call them mini retirements, where it's like, take a month and go somewhere. And yeah, you can still work, but not the same intensity. You have to, if it's in Europe, it's great because, I think we talked about this too, is like the morning, nobody's awake in the US really. So you're not going to get a ton of real time stuff. And by the time dinner's done in Europe, everyone's just wrapping their day and blah, 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 and you're in bed. So it kind of gives you a half day, forces you into having a half day if you want to take it. So, yeah, I think that balance is a big deal for me now.
Yeah, I think that a couple of years ago, especially when I started getting into heavy coaching, I was just on a huge impact. I was just flooded with so much decisions and people's problems, and a guy who was an expert recovery guy too, funny enough, practicing guy with a massage certification too, and he said, I think you should go get a massage. And he's like, not one of those like resort fucking things. He's like a real one, where you release energy and all that stuff. And funny enough, it's become a non-negotiable for me. I put my phone away. It's my time. I built 3 businesses during that time, like mentally. The business that I'm in now, I built 3 years ago during the massage. Literally made the masseuse stop and whiteboarded it, and then went back to massage. So for me, it's those times, and I'm trying to get better. That you can't be running at full speed all the time, and you gotta do that whole thing. For me, when I'm not creative, like that's when I know things are messed up. When I'm not thinking about the business, that's when you're running at the end of your wick, and it's time to put it in neutral and kind of take a minute, right? Which is hard, because I think the overall thing that I've seen is like the entrepreneur thinks if they turn out the fire, they can't turn the plane back on. That's like the biggest fear.
Yeah, I think especially in the beginning, it depends on where you're at with your revenue and all that kind of stuff and team size. If it's just you, yeah, kind of likely you can't. But your first goal should really get to a point where you can get somebody in there to. I'm not saying like on X where every searcher is like, first thing I want to do is replace myself. I'm like, yeah, you've never been a founder, maybe, like, because I feel like, yeah, sure, but at the same time, there's if you're the founder, there's a lot of magic that comes from who you are in that business, and you need to have a good team around you to help counterbalance. Like if you need that time, if I need a month away, I gotta have somebody to pick up the slack. Who's going to respond to my emails? Who's going to whatever, right? Who's going to direct the traffic? Who's going to whatever it is, whatever my tasks are. If you don't have that, your goal should be to build revenue, sell the hell out of whatever you're doing until you can afford to do that, train them well until you build the trust with them, and then as soon as you can, take that time for yourself, and then come back refreshed and prepared to exceed the expectations of whatever your goals are for that year.
So I want to share something I never share with you. So I'm 41 years old. You actually represent everything I can't stand. You live in Miami. You live in Miami. You live in New York. You drive flashy cars. I should hate you on paper, every part of you, because I'm not a fan. But I don't blame you for that. I blame Instagram.
Yeah.
But you are the most humble guy I've ever met. You are generally curious about other people, and you want to see people succeed. And it's such, that's why we're connected, because you're such a good person, even though you have all those things going on. And that's why life is fun, right? Because that's the kind of business that you want to do. People,
sure,
hang out and be a community.
Yeah, and like you gotta remember, man. Like I grew up in a trailer, like and he like, and it's I have a good friend of mine that we've gotten really close for the last several months, and he's a legit billionaire. Like I don't know the exact number, but I know one of his companies, what it's worth, and it's several billion. And he's a car guy and all that stuff. Like we jam. And he knows every famous person on the planet. It's ridiculous. But humble dude. And he's taught me a lot over the last, period of time here. And you gotta kind of appreciate the fun while it's there. And when it's, gone, or when you don't want it anymore, you can't do it or whatever, it goes. Like it is what it is. You need to build value around. I'm not saying not, don't enjoy your hobbies. Like if you're a car guy, go have fun with cars. And I think it's easy for people to kind of shit on, especially on social media. It's easy to shit on like, luxury things and blah, 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 blah. I get that. I totally get it. Like Parker and I the other day were talking about, I was like, I would post more of this, but it's kind of like, you know,
Yeah.
people just shit on it immediately. So it's like,
Yeah.
you know, there's no real point other than like showing like I'm doing this thing today. That's kind of, you know, maybe that's interesting and part of building an audience and whatever. But you know, I feel like the relationships that I have in my life, and I will tell you over the past, like really since, you know, middle of 23, you know, I have spent a lot of time working on myself, trying new things and kind of challenging some aspects of who I am and identity and all that stuff. And I've realized that, you know, now, I mean, I've met 200, 300 people new, maybe more than that. I don't know. A lot of people, new people in the last 6 months. And some of those people I have really deep relationships with. Some I'm going into business with. Some I just check in on, they check in on me. And like, it's pretty amazing because that's what the spice of life is for me. Like, sure, I love all fun, nice stuff, blah, 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 blah. And like, that's a box of enjoyment for me. I want to check. That's fun. It's a hobby. Cool. But like, I'd much rather go to some SMB conference and shoot the shit with a bunch of guys that are like building their, you know, sub $10 million businesses.
Like a bunch of nerds talking for 4 hours about, you know, I love it. It's my favorite.
Yeah. And it's funny. I think maybe we discussed this too, but I think the reason that I find that group of people so interesting is because they're like me. Like, yeah, some are much smarter than me for sure, but there's also some that are just starting off. There's some that are, you know, been doing it for a long time and are struggling and they need little, you know, input or whatever. They're just looking for insight. That's cool. There's people that genuinely like want to help. And like for me, a lot of times, and I don't know if I'd be curious what your opinion is on this from the outside looking in, but I feel like most of the time when I talk to somebody new, yeah, I'll start hearing what they're saying and I'm just thinking of ways to like, hey, you should talk to this guy. He can help you. Or I'm immediately thinking of ways to like, it's
just happened yesterday.
Yeah. And it's like, dude, it's us.
No.
Oh, okay. I'm like, oh man.
I met this guy on Twitter and he was like, this is what I'm doing. I'm getting married 6 months. I need to be here. I go, you need to talk to this guy. And he's like, dude, thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, it's funny because I don't know, there's so many people that don't automatically think that way. And then the other side is a lot of people don't automatically assume that's kind of what the intentions are of the person, especially if they've maybe are a little further along in their career or whatever. They're like, you know, a little hesitant.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit. Like, I don't need anything from you. Like, I'd rather, if you tell me you need to raise capital, I'm like, oh, here's a couple LPs that might be interested in your thing. Go. Or like a guy I met, recently, he kind of a similar position to me, different guy, but he was texting me, he's like, hey, I'm kind of in this position, I'm exiting a business, have some capital, looking to invest, kind of all over the place. I'm like, let me connect you on text with 6 people. Bang, 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 bang. And from then, like some deals have happened out of that, I think. And even things like in the real world, you know, not just meeting people from random places and being referred and all that, like that New York thing, the Texas thing we're going to do. Those are ways to deepen
on the podcast where he's helping my IT guy dial in our IT. Like, I mean, that was from a trip, man.
Yeah, but you do business with people you like and you get along with, right? Like, they have to be confident. They have to do all this stuff.
Andrew goes, look, man, I talk to people on a regular basis, but in the first 5 minutes I meet you, he's like, I didn't want to leave you, man. And I'm like, dude, same, bro. I'm like, I loved it. Dude, I tell everybody, the only mistake that was made in this universe was that I wasn't born in New Jersey. Because I belong in an Italian family and I should have been the mayor of a New Jersey town. That's the only, because I love that family business. What do you need? Can I help your business, right? And Parker and I have another rule. Okay, this is a hard and fast rule. I had it with my guys down in Texas. If we ask you if you like Nickelback and Creed, and you tell us no, we're not doing business with you office. Because you're lying through your fucking teeth. Yeah. True story. I said the same thing to all my texts the other day. Got a boombox. I was playing Nickelback, and they were all singing, and they were like, "Who doesn't love this?"
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it's funny. My girlfriend and I went to this restaurant recently, but we had a little bit of time to burn, so we went to a bar next door. You know, not really a hole in the wall bar, but just kind of like kind of like a pub-ish, but a little more hipstery. But they had like, you know, games and whatever baloney. And but they had an old school jukebox in there. I'm like, oh man. So I started flipping through it. They just had tons of different you know, different songs and artists, whatever. And I found a page with Creed. I'm like, oh yeah, game on.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So you know, as we move into 2024, and you know, I think that I like to zoom out, I like to zoom in. I'm kind of all over the place. On a bigger scale, I just interviewed Josh Schultz from Reg and Josh, and we were talking about how true operators in this environment, you know, are gonna shine through, you know. And if somebody is getting started, they want to start their own business, or they want to just level up their game, you know, what is your kind of like 1-2 punch to kind of get them their operational mindset, their entrepreneurship mindset dialed in before we get out of here?
Sorry, you broke up at the end there. What was the question?
I'm saying, if they want somebody that has their own business, wants to level up their own business, or be involved in bigger businesses, what's your 1-2 punch, like how you took your mindset to the next level?
Oh man, that's a loaded question. I mean, for the business, make more money. Make more money.
That's perfect. Yes,
that's pretty much it. Make more money. I think for yourself, you know, you kind of have to look inward a bit and try to find those blind spots that you neglect. And there's something I wrote about the other day, but you know, finding things that you know you need to do, and you just kind of avoid them or push them off. Just commit one day to just, hey, I'm going to do all the things I don't want to do today just to prove that I can do it. And then the next day, do the same thing. And the next day, make sure that's the first thing. Because if you do the shit work first, and I'm talking to the people that are like in the grind and maybe getting mentally beat up a little bit, and maybe the solopreneurs for sure. But, you know, if you do the hard stuff first and get it out of the way, commit to doing that, the rest of it's easy. I mean, if it's, you know, if it's trying to cold call people because you hate cold calling, but you know you need to do it because you got to drum up business, just commit to doing 10, right? And once you get past 10, do another 10. And then, you know, do another, whatever, right? Whatever that is, just to get yourself out of the fear, or check it off your list. It's been on there for 2 weeks or whatever, right? Like, we all do it, you know, it's just natural, you know, I don't have time for that. I'm busy. I don't feel like doing that. Whatever. You push it off. I would say if you're really bad at it, you know, find somebody, even if they're a family member, who cares? I've done that before back in the day when I was like, fuck, I keep procrastinating these things and I have to do it. I would tell my brother, like, here's a list of things I need to do. Can you yell at me until I do this? like literally, if at the end of the day, call me and say, have you done these things? And if not, I need a smack in the mouth. Like, this is serious. I gotta treat this serious. And like, you know, everyone gets in this rut where they, you know, neglect certain things and whatever. And that probably goes for more than just, you know, your business, but you know, do the hard shit first and make more money.
So I think I was talking to a client today, and I can think back to this business and other businesses. You know, we become a society of 90%. Like, we're not finishers. We take it all the way, and then we get distracted and we move on. Like, if you start something, you finish it. Become somebody that finishes, and I promise you, you'll watch your confidence shoot the roof. And that can be the smallest thing. It could be 1 push-up a day, 10 push-ups a day, or I'm going to do, you know, this thing that I don't want to do. Like, you know, I got a client, he cold calls and he hates it. And I'm like, do more of them. Like, and every time it gets a little bit easier. Yeah. I'm like,
yeah, it's funny, man. I posted this thing the other day about cold calling. It was like an experience I was with cold calling and whatever, but there was a little graphic that was really funny to me. It was like I forget what it was, but it was I'll find it for you real quick. Basically, it was a joke and kind of, you know, kind of tongue in cheek a bit for people of the younger generation and really my generation too. It's like, hey, give them a call. And the guys, I've already emailed, and it's, be quick to call. He's like, I texted them too. then it's just call them. I'll send them another email. It's like constantly like afraid of doing this thing. But that's a great example. It's like, just what do you have to lose? You know what? Somebody's going to say, why the fuck are you calling me? Okay, fair point. Learn from it. Try to get around it. Say, hey, look, I totally understand you. I'd feel the same way too. Here's the reason, blah, blah, whatever, right? Have your pitch. But like, you know, all this is a craft. And the way you build a craft is through repetition. And a lot of the repetition is trudging through piles of shit you don't want to do for a decade. And then you're an overnight success, basically.
One of my best friends, he owns a couple companies. And he was in a job, and then he went to wholesale. And he said, everything I have in my life is because of a cold call.
Yeah.
He goes, I cold DM'd you. You became my coach. You changed my life. I switched into new business. My business partner, and they have 4 companies together, was a cold call. He was trying to buy his property. They met. He said, everything I have in my life is a cold call. If I wouldn't have done those things, I'd be still where I was.
Yep. I totally get it, man. And you know, I've had, on that topic of cold calls, I've had a lot over the years that have been just out of left field. The one I don't know if you saw, but I did one yesterday about this cold call I had back in 2012. And it was like 3 days of me fucking ripping phones and not getting any. Everyone's just fucking just the worst people ever. Nobody interested, you know, just the worst. And then the 4th day I got a big deal, and it was like, oh, but that's what that kind of stuff is. You know, cold outreach is notorious for the ups and downs of the emotional, you know. I always used to joke is like with sales, again, back to what we were saying earlier, is, you know, you kind of become callous to certain things. And that skill, as an example, is one of those things. I mean, when you're first starting in sales, every win feels fucking amazing, and every no feels like you're getting punched in the gut. And it's like the emotional plane is like this, and it could be down, straight down for a while, and then you get one that's up, and then down even further, and you get a bunch that's up, and then a bunch that's down. Like, it's just all over the place. So managing your emotions within that is really, really challenging in the beginning, especially. But over time, like for me now, I'm callous. I could rip cold calls all day long, get yelled at, won't feel a fucking thing. And I could close a bunch of deals, I won't feel anything. It's like, cool, good, next. It's like, you know, it's just a numbers game. Don't care. Keep going. Oh, you don't want me to call you again? I'll call you next week. Have a great day. Click. Like, I don't care. I feel nothing. And yes, you should have some empathy and whatever, but like at the same time, look, I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to make clients, make business, you know. It's different, you know.
If people want to track you down, they want to get to know you, how would they do that?
Social medias, Parker D. Little, or I'm Varsity Parker. We also actually just built a website. One of my guys last weekend built a website. It's just parkerdlittle.com, and that has some info. And if you want to get in touch, if you want to pitch, you want to partner, you want to work, hit me up.
Love it, guys. If you got some value from this episode, send it to a friend, rate us and review us, and we'll see you next time.